skydiver.
Okay, he's gonna come.
Stand up. Stand up.
All right, so for those of you that don't know me, I started skydiving about 12 years ago up in Lebanon, Maine.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So, you know, we've talked a lot about canopy control and how important it is. I don't even really know where to start because there's a lot of important things and we can't really cover it all. So, I just want to give you guys some food for thought and to think about things. All right. I've been here for about 5 months or so, and you guys are very, very fortunate to jump at such an amazing drop zone.
Yeah.
Okay. The landing area is huge. The weather's awesome. Winds are usually light, and it's always pretty predictable. All right. But how many people here have ever jumped out of the state of California?
Yeah.
Fair amount of people. I'm actually all right. There's quite a few people that have.
About that. I didn't think we'd see so many hands. That's awesome. That'll keep you safe.
Yeah. Okay. So how many people here checked what the upper winds were doing today? Really? Really?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. Asking the pilot doesn't really count. But what I want you guys to think about is, you know, we're training people to be skydivers anywhere in the world. But when you go to a different drop zone, different drop zones have different flight characteristics and different patterns, different sight pictures, and things of that nature. So I want to give you guys a story. The first fatality I was ever on the drop zone for was a friend of mine from Texas, and she was up in Maine, about 200 jumps. Okay, and there was a series of problems that led to her fatality. She got out, it was the end of the day, and at the end of the day at Skydive New England, for some reason the winds tend to pick up late, and the upper winds, right? Ground winds die down, upper winds pick up. Wasn't really familiar with that. Probably had about 50 jumps at Skydive New England, but hadn't experienced this before. But every local knew this. All right, so she gets up in the plane and she starts doing crew. And what is the basic safety recommendations for break off for crew? Anybody know? 2,500 feet. Okay, so when they're doing their crew, they fly themselves downwind. They're not paying attention. They go past the 2,500 foot mark. And for the few people that have jumped at Skydive New England, how many outs are there?
Three.
Three.
Trees.
And there's one to the northwest, there's one to the south, and one to the east.
And one's very angry and has a rifle.
Yeah, right? And they're all 3 different directions ranging from a half a mile to a mile away. So you need to make and it's surrounded by 80-foot trees, so you need to make the decision very quick. So, first of all, you know, she flies herself downwind doing crew, breaks off late, and then all of a sudden realizes, shit, I'm not going to make it back. Okay? Now, there's a road that kind of goes into the drop zone. And again, surrounded by 80-foot trees. Part of the problem was, I think, is she came from Texas, very similar to Elsinore. How many trees do we have here?
1.
Yeah. I tell my students, if you land in a tree, we're going to have a little talk. Okay? But in Texas, wide open landing areas, not a lot of trees. So instead of being prepared for a tree landing, which is quite a safe landing, believe it or not, right? She tries to put it on the road, and what goes near what roads? Right. And these things are very difficult to see. So what does she do? She executes a low turn. The last problem she had is she wasn't wearing a hard helmet. Alright, so what I want you guys to think about is to understand, before we get on that plane, we should have a plan. Just like we practice a dive flow, we want to practice the canopy flow as well. Understand which way the winds are coming from. You know, 99 times out of 100, they're coming out of the north or whatever. And it's pretty static around here. But we need to understand, how fast are those winds going? What direction are they coming out? Do we have wind shear? Does it get stronger as we get lower, get inversion? These are things that people don't think about, and it's, you know, because the weather is so good here, it's not really a problem. But it takes people by surprise. And that's what you guys need to start thinking about. Where should I be getting out? I've seen 2 people since I've been here. The door opens up and they just go, and they're a mile and a half that way, downwind. Good job. Okay?
First people out usually are downwind.
Green light.
Thank you.
But the green light wasn't even on. So that's not an excuse. Okay? But we should know where we're getting out. Understand what these winds are doing, where we're getting out, where should we open up? Where is our holding area, and what is our pattern before we even get out of that plane. And different drop zones have different characteristics. Like, we have a higher elevation here. Canopies fly faster. It is very, very different. So for those of you that haven't jumped at other drop zones, you want to understand those little idiosyncrasies that you may be going to. And one of the best things you could do when you show up to a brand new drop zone is just sit there. The first day I got here, I just sat and watched canopies. I want to see what people are doing, where the patterns are, and how the canopies are reacting. Because every drop zone is a little bit different. Opening avoidance. So I'm going to touch upon a few things. Some of the stuff that's really critical to save your life. All right, we open up, we do that 21-way tracking dive with Rocco at the end of the day. Holy crap. We got 20 people out there trying to kill me. Right? So when we open up, me and Sean, we're facing off at each other. We're flying right at each other. We had a 180 opening. We tracked. Didn't track so well. We're coming right at each other. Refresher. What are we going to do? Turn right. With the risers, right? Yeah. Woohoo! Alright? But this will save your life one of these days, for sure. If it already hasn't, it will for a lot of you newer jumpers. I guarantee it. Yeah? So when would we not want to turn right? This is actually a situation where we don't want to turn right.
If you're doing more than a 180,
What's that?
Over there.
if you're doing more than a 180 and they want to keep with the turn and do a 360 to keep your heading back away from the group.
Well, let's give it a scenario, right? You're flying this way, and I'm flying that way, and we're going to meet right there.
Yeah.
Would it make sense for you to turn right?
Is there anyone over here?
No.
Right.
But you wouldn't want to do a big sweeping turn into me, right?
Right. No.
So in that scenario, we'd kind of just go like that.
Avoid the body.
So, but if we're going head to head, always right? Even if we're in Europe and you're driving on the wrong side of the road.
Right is right.
They actually, I think they do know that.
Right is right.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Right is right.
Another thing I see a lot of newer jumpers do, nothing's more entertaining when I see somebody with a 210 square foot parachute that beats me down to the ground with a 75. Holy crap. Alright? I actually had almost a canopy collision earlier this year, or this past summer when I was in Chicago. Guy spiraling down. He had no idea he was coming at me. So it's a three-dimensional playground up there. We need to pay attention. We need to think spatially. How many people got out in front of us? You know, eventually, as you get to know people around here, I know there's, 4 people that got out in front of me. Jump runs going to the north. So when I open up, I look to the south and I see 1, 2, 3. Where's the 4th one? I know what canopy colors they are. I know what their wing loading is roughly. And I know, do I need to stay away from them? Are they green, white, maybe red canopies? Alright? These are those situations that Bob was talking about where you may want to land way over there. Okay, but in all seriously, I know who's on that plane, I know how they fly their parachute, and I know where they should be spatially in regards to me. I know who should be behind me and where they should be. So a lot of newer jumpers, they start spiraling down, and they're creating undue congestion in that landing area. Okay? Unnecessary. We need to think, because we need to look down at those other people and see where they're at and let them land. Ideally, we should land in the order in which we exited. Obviously, there's some issues with wing loading and high-performance canopies, and that's a whole different thing. But there's no reason to be spiraling down. And usually when you're spiraling down, if you're going to start doing that, you're going to start getting pushed downwind, typically. And if we don't have that awareness not to spiral, we probably don't have the awareness to realize that we're getting pushed downwind in the first place. And that's how part of the problems can happen. We're losing altitude, we're getting downwind, and then we're putting ourselves in a situation where we may or may not be able to handle. Okay? So this is why it's important to have that plan before we get on the plane and stick to it. Yeah? Another one. Long spots. A bunch of different ways. There's, a few techniques that we want to use if we're long. How are we going to get back from a long spot? Let's say we got a tailwind.
Rears.
Yeah.
Rears.
A
Little bit of brakes. Rears. Little bit of brakes.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay? How about if you got a headwind?
Rears.
Rears.
Okay? Usually the rears are probably going to be your better option because we're changing the angle of attack from here to here. If you put it in deep brakes, I saw somebody open up to the south the other day and flying this way, and they had a tough time making it back, and they're flying in brakes the whole time with a headwind. With a headwind. And they're just kind of sinking. I'm like, whew. Yeah. So he ended up getting out in the same spot before, used the rear risers, and he made it back fine. Alright, so sometimes you just need to figure out which is working better for you. Sometimes it's the rear, sometimes it's the brakes. So if you're not sure, just gotta see what kind of angle you got.
Tucked and legs up, you get extra push if you have wind to your back with your legs down. If you're fighting the wind, pick your legs up, you have a little bit less drag. It adds up. It helps depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, huge.
It may or may not apply.
Aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Hey Barry, try to pull on a rear risers, type 8 risers with bare hands. Now large ass canopy. Some of these women can't even do it. Alright? So pick your hands up.
Yeah.
Ladies, show you where your biceps is, okay? It's pretty hard to do. 317, they might get away with it.
But let's say you can't make it back, make the decision high. You know, in New England, you need to have that decision done by about $2,000 minimum. Am I going to make it back or am I not? Around here, as long as you land on the planet, you're on the drop zone. Alright? So it's not that big of a deal, but you go to another drop zone and it's a big deal. You're either landing in the trees or you're going to make the drop zone, or you need to make that decision and you're going to land a mile away. Alright? So,
1800 west.
brake turns. Another one of the most critical life-saving skills. Alright? We're coming in, I'm flying my pattern, and I'm coming in straight in approach.
What size is your canopy?
It doesn't matter. Right, Sean? Right? So it doesn't matter if I'm a student or whoever it is, right? Maybe somebody is coming in and they're cutting me right off. What should be our first response? We're at 100 feet.
Jackass.
Huh?
That is my
What should we do?
Yeah.
Put in the brakes. That should be your first response, right? Hopefully, that gives you enough time they'll fly right by you. And then you then call them a jackass and then you're on your way. Alright, worst case scenario is we put it in the brakes, slow it down, and then we perform the brake turn, right? So we're losing less altitude. This is another life-saving maneuver. If you are not comfortable with it, get comfortable with it. Alright, I recommend get coaching, do whatever you need to do, but this is stuff, you know, doing hop and pops is probably one of the most important things you can do to understand your canopy. And done properly, you guys, if you're doing a hop and pop, I recommend you guys land downwind. I recommend you guys land crosswind when there's nobody else around and it's safe to do so. Yeah? Because that 99 times out of 100 you land in the landing area. That one time you need to put it downwind into somebody's backyard because you're not concerned about which way the winds are coming at this point. You're just trying not to hit trees, fences, or whatever. Alright, you need to take it downwind. You want to understand how that canopy flies. Yeah?
They told me that too years ago. It's valid.
Yeah. Hey, it's never going to hurt you to have a bigger canopy. You're going to be wishing you had a bigger canopy at that point. Yeah?
Has anybody landed by the emus? Has anybody seriously landed by the emus? It's a similar situation where you get put into a corner, so to speak. If the winds aren't on your side, you have to land crosswind into a small area.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Here, if you track the wrong direction or break off the wrong direction.
Yep. So, Lob kind of talked about when the winds are coming out of the north and they start picking up a little bit. Right? It's kind of dangerous to be flying over objects. I know in my class I tell them, don't fly over anything you don't want to land on. And I'm not just talking about students, I'm talking about high performance people. Peter G went over a building, caught turbulence, went into the building, killed him. Alright, these are legendary people that are getting killed flying over stuff.
Sick.
Yeah, sick. Alright? But so let's kind of reverse things a little bit. Winds coming on the south like they were today. Where did we put the beers in the landing area?
Too close.
Too close. Why too close?
Turbulence.
Turbulence, okay? People forget because we don't have a lot of winds around here. Right? When winds are coming out of the south, we have these trees that are 60 feet tall, wherever tall they are. Right? We take that object 10 times 20 times the height of that object downwind, you're going to catch turbulence. And I know when winds are coming out of the south, just the other day when we were over there going by the pond, that wall there created some really nasty stuff.
Big buildings.
Yeah. So you need to kind of think about this. Just because we jump at this awesome drop zone where winds are always good, when you go to another one, it's a problem. And I've seen a lot of people fly downwind or on the downwind side of objects where your canopy collapses. Yeah? Question?
Out there. Like, I don't know if a lot of people notice it every year too. For some reason, I think it's very. There are a lot of power lines over there. Like, honestly, there are a lot of power lines over there that you wouldn't see until you're low. So it's just something to think about. And
cows.
Take a look at your house.
It's a so
Yeah, well, that's
Angela.
my next point. Examine your outs. How many people have actually driven over by the dairy and walked around? Huh?
Yeah.
But you know, even all you wingsuiters that are flying and landing way over there, you know, you guys might want to get a little bit more comfortable. You know, whenever you go to a new drop zone, drive around, see where the available outs are. Don't just go up there without a plan and just be like, well, I guess I'm landing off. Yeah. All right, and then you see those power lines and it's too late. All right. So know this stuff before you even get on the plane. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make.
Very.
Yeah.
Typically, power lines usually run with the street.
Yeah.
Typically,
Nature does not
99%
make
of the
straight
time.
lines. Man does, and if it's man-made, there's power going to it. So you want to assume that if it's a road or something like that,
Cross it, you know, like yeah.
there's power lines.
Yeah, but that front yard, that building, that house that's on that road, power lines are going from power lines to the house.
Yeah,
as well, so that front
exactly.
yard is not always the same place.
Yeah. But yeah.
Land in the road.
Yeah.
Further back, talking about the windows off. How many people in this room can read a compass?
What's that?
How many people in this room actually read a compass, know what compass headings are?
Spot on.
A lot of people do not know how to read a compass.
And there's two websites that actually get the winds aloft from. US AirNet is a good one. It actually has it in miles per hour. And I usually get them for Ontario. If you don't know how to read knots, if you like to do the nautical thing, navmonster.com is another good one. And it actually has the winds aloft for actually this airport. Yeah. And if anybody has any questions on this stuff, feel free to ask me. Alright. So, landing patterns. Most of you should be relatively familiar with this. But
Use your thing.
Do your thing.
Yeah, where's your laser?
Alright.
Lob's got a laser.
Alright, so
Barry, use your laser.
So, okay, Lob kind of talked about it. We got 200 jump minimum right here. Okay, high performance landing area here. We got our students landing over here and over here. Alright, so predominantly we got winds north and south. Alright, everybody should be relatively familiar with this, but we're going to talk about a few things because lately we've had winds out of the east and winds out of the west. And what do? Okay, so pretty much if we're landing towards the lake in a no wind, light wind scenario, you know, we're going to have our holding area here. You know, we're going to do that right hand pattern coming in on final, landing towards the lake. And then we're landing south towards buildings, holding area here, left hand pattern. So, let's say the winds are coming out of the east. What we're going to do, I think Lob and Hamo talked about it, is we're going to do a right hand pattern to the east. Alright, obviously if we're landing north, I broke it.
Touch the screen.
You touch the screen.
Quick touch.
If we're,
Touch it. You touch the screen.
I'll give you 20
if we're
minutes to
landing
stop.
north and south, we have a lot more room for error. Yeah? But if we're landing east and west, it's a little bit more of a tighter pattern.
Don't. Oh.
Sorry.
Go to your happy place.
I'll get him back in.
And so if we're landing east and west, it makes it a little bit trickier. Okay? So what I think the thought process is, we're going to do right-hand pattern coming across the tents here, taking base near the runway, not over the top of it, and then landing east. I think the safe reason about this is, if we're going this way, we can extend that base leg if we're high, and then we're not going into the fence over here. Right, but also it gives us room to bail out. Yeah? So if we start getting low or something, we can't bring the turn around, we can bail out this way and there's no obstacles.
Yeah.
That means you don't always have to land right exactly into the wind for a safe zone. Land a little bit off the wind line, you know, but just land safely, you know.
Yeah, well, it's better than if we go this way with
Corner
it,
yourself.
right? And you start getting you're high and you need to whip it around. now you're forced to do a lower turn, and then you're into the fence
Yeah, if they're landing towards the fence.
or the van or whatever.
No whipping it around.
So
None
if
of
we're
that.
landing to the west, again, we're going to keep it over the tents for the main landing area and bringing it around here, extending that base leg and coming in that way. Again, if you need to bail out, you have open room here rather than crossing the runway. Don't make me hit you with the laser.
Oh.
Okay.
Hey guys, just quick question. Can you guys pick out what's wrong on the map?
Oh yeah.
Be like 600 jumps.
Is it per street?
There's a race.
What's that supposed to be?
CD. 200 jumps.
That's it. C&D 200 jumps.
What about the otter? What about the otter or caravan sitting there with spinning props?
Another good point.
Stay away from the.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, if the otter's sitting here spinning, blowing air this way, probably don't want to land behind it.
Stay away from it.
I've seen canopies actually get picked up before and slamming people down. So just kind of be mindful. Think about where you're landing. Yeah. Questions, comments, complaints, concerns.
I
Rocco.
say,
I got something related to canopy stuff, just like students and newer jumpers, just on student status. Because a lot of times they'll have tendency to pull higher. Telling them to watch for the next groups out before they start flying back to the drop zone.
Yeah.
That's something you might want to.
Well, it's, yeah, I mean, it's another thing. Like when you open up, you know, if, let's say we're going, jump run's going in the north, right? Maybe open up here.
where it's high.
Or no, wait, they're opening up, you know, about here. They're holding
To
areas
the
here.
north. To the north.
They don't want to fly straight up jump run. You don't ever want to fly straight up jump run. You don't want to fly, you know, that direction.
Do high pillars get out last? I'm just curious
Well,
what's
they usually, if we're talking
understanding.
about students and they're doing solo stats, they're usually pulling around 4,500 feet, somewhere in that range. So they typically go out before the AFF.
Okay.
But as you know, you don't want to ever fly directly up jump run. Usually once I open up, I mean, if we're doing jump run to the north, I'll fly east or west.
To the mountains or freeway.
Yeah, so then you can, you know, for you guys that are stowing your slider and doing whatever you need to do, I'll open up, check it, you know, whip it in this direction with my rear risers, and then stow my stuff, so at least I'm flying in a safe direction. I'm not going downwind and I'm not going upwind.
Just like tracking or anything else. Just
Yeah.
stay out the
Yeah?
Hey Barry.
So you don't have people falling through
Stay in
you.
your lane, fool.
Say it.
Yeah. So you don't fly up jump run because people can fall through you, right?
Meat missiles.
Yeah. What?
A little louder.
I get what?
Damien has a
You're gonna lose your voice by the time you're done.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Be safe.